Welcome to Aussie Biology. Today I'm talking about the sugar glider. The sugar glider is a native Australian mammal that is a very cute small possum that can glide from tree to tree due to membranes between its front and its hind legs that it creates a large surface area for it to glide. So in that way it's similar to the American flying squirrel. Similar adaptations, but they're not related to each other. The sugar glider is a marsupial and the flying squirrel is a placental animal. Right, so a few years ago, some friends of mine in the US put on social media that they had gotten some sugar gliders as pets, and I was absolutely gobsmacked. Gobsmacked. I had no idea that sugar gliders were being bred and sold as pets. The only mammal I've heard of, only Australian mammal I've heard of, being bred and sold as a pet outside of Australia. Now, in Australia, you're not allowed to keep native animals as pets. They are wildlife. They belong in the wild where their needs can be met, where their food is, where they live. Some people do take native animals and keep them as pets, and they usually end up getting surrendered at some point when the people can no longer look after them. So, if you think about kangaroos, for example, if someone has hit a kangaroo on the road, or if they've found a mother that has died but she's got a joey in the pouch, some people will take the joey home. Can't really do that very well in the suburban area, so more in rural and semi-rural areas people might do that. But then the kangaroos grow really, really big and they're difficult to control. They can be vicious. So then they will get surrendered. If they've been raised close to humans, you can't usually release them back into the wild. So there's a whole lot of issues associated with that. So it is illegal to keep native animals as pets in Australia unless you have bought them from a pet store and they've been bred for the pet industry. Now, the other thing that's surprising about sugar gliders being kept as pets in the US is that most small mammals like the sugar glider in Australia are endangered. They normally have had their numbers greatly reduced due to habitat loss and also by predation by introduced cats and foxes. And a lot of our small to medium sized mammals are either extinct or endangered or under threat. But I had a look into the sugar glider, and this is its distribution around Australia, and found that its conservation status is of least concern. Its numbers are very abundant. It's an excellent breeder. It breeds very easily and in high numbers. And so I think this is probably the reason why it's been allowed to leave the country and be used in the pet trade in the United States. Another reason the sugar gliders have been so successful is probably because of their tree dwelling habits. They very rarely spend time on the ground, so they're kept away from those cats and foxes and avoided predation. Now, sugar gliders became pets in the US in the 1990s when I assume some breeders would have imported some breeding pairs. Only the breeders are allowed to breed and sell the sugar gliders, and any male sugar gliders that are sold have been sterilised. They're not legal in all states to keep as pets, so some states like Pennsylvania and Hawaii don't allow them to be kept as pets, and that's because of the concern about them possibly escaping into the wild of the state and disrupting the local ecosystem, which is fair enough. Now, I read a bit and watched some videos on what it's like to keep sugar gliders as pets, and it seems like you have to be really committed to keep a sugar glider as a pet. They have very unique needs and place a lot of demands on their owners, even though they are very cute and fun to watch. Now, the first thing that sort of struck me was that sugar gliders live for 9 to 12 years, so it's about the same commitment as keeping a cat or a dog. But they are also nocturnal. So during the night when you're asleep is when they are the most active. During the day when you're awake, they mostly want to sleep. And they will be active during the day for short periods of time. You can get them out to play with them and interact with them, but then it won't be long before they want to go back into their cages and go to sleep again. There are pretty strict requirements for what is suitable housing for them. They also have quite complex nutritional needs. Even though they're called sugar gliders, they still need protein in their diet. They're actually omnivores. So you can buy pre-prepared pellets for them, or you can make food for them using a prescribed sort of diet, a mixture of, say, eggs and honey and fruit and those kinds of things. But you also need to provide them insects as part of their diet as well. Apparently, you should be feeding them twice a day and you should be daily giving them fresh water, cleaning their water bowls, and cleaning their food bowls. One veterinarian site recommended 2 hours of socialising time every night with your sugar gliders. Because remember, they're not domesticated animals. These animals have just recently come from the wild. They haven't had hundreds, maybe thousands of years of selective breeding like cats and dogs have to create their domesticated version that we have in our houses with us. So that 2 hours socialisation is really important to build that connection between the sugar gliders and their owners. You are also not permitted to own just one sugar glider. They're very social animals, so you should have at least two. If you own one, it can become anxious and stressed and is not the best case scenario for the animal. So even though they are very cute and cuddly and look like they would be fun to watch playing and have gliding around your house, they seem like a really big commitment. I'd love to hear from anyone who owns sugar gliders who can share their experiences with us on what it's like. At first, I thought it would be fantastic to be able to own sugar gliders, but just their 9 to 12 years of needs, fulfilling their needs to keep them happy just seems like a stretch too far. Tell me what you think.